In 2024, global inflation finally came back down to earth without crashing the global economy, but with plenty of major disruptions that will guarantee that 2025 will be an eventful year for the global economy. But what exactly can we expect? From the return of trade wars, potential austerity, and a massive demographic change to an energy revolution, here are the 5 key trends I believe will shape the global economy in 2025 and my predictions for their outcomes. Starting with prediction number 1, demographic decline will start to bite in Europe, Japan, and China. Sure, the trend of population decline has been a long time coming, but in 2025 it will be especially relevant for Europe, Japan, and China, all for different reasons. First, while Europe's population is still predicted to increase in 2025, calculations by economists Brackman, Kohl, and van Marwijk show that compared to the world, Europe's limited workforce increasingly has to work both for itself and an increasing share of pensioners. Meanwhile, China's population will continue to decline in 2025, but its economic effect will not yet be too drastic in the upcoming year for 2 reasons. The first reason is that starting in January 2025, China will finally start raising its retirement age, offsetting for a large part the decline of its working population. The second reason is that paradoxically, Chinese fertility is falling so fast that while workers will need to support more elderly people, they will need to support fewer children. This is important because from an economic perspective, children are just as much of a liability as the elderly. Of course, this will make China's aging problem much worse in the future, but for now it means that while headline population numbers in China will be bad, its economy won't feel that in 2025 yet. On the other hand, while Japan's economy dealt pretty well with falling population so far, 2025 will be particularly difficult for them because a lot of Japanese baby boomers will turn 75 next year. Up to 75, Japanese people are on average still pretty active and healthy. However, after 75, their health quickly starts to deteriorate, meaning that they will need much more support and healthcare interventions, which are very expensive. Luckily, Japan might dodge a bullet with my next prediction, which is prediction number 2, Trump's trade war will start slow. In theory, the re-election of Donald Trump should supercharge the already existing trend of deglobalization, also known as fragmentation, which is characterized by tariffs, sanctions, and industrial policy, which is all contributing to a remarkable slowdown in international trade compared to GDP. Trends that I discussed at length in several videos on this channel last year. Now, the safe prediction would be that Trump makes deglobalization much worse in 2025. After all, this is what he literally promised to do when he said that
under my leadership, we are going to take other countries' jobs. Did you ever hear that expression before? Have you ever heard that we're going to take other countries' jobs? It's never been stated before.
To bring factories home and get countries to comply with other objectives, Trump has already promised that he will increase tariffs against China, but also Mexico and Canada when he becomes president in January. He also made Elon Musk head of the new Department of Government Efficiency. In this role, Musk promised to cut US government spending by a whopping $2 trillion. This could be devastating to global trade because it would make many Americans much poorer, meaning that they could import less stuff. So then, why would I predict Trump's trade war will start slow? Well, when it comes to the tariffs, Trump's new pick for Treasury Secretary has said in an essay in The Economist that completely abandoning the international trading system would be a disaster for the American people and our allies. In fact, in that same essay, he hinted that Trump's most aggressive tariff suggestions should be seen as more of a negotiation tactic than a real policy. Second, when it comes to Musk, he has zero experience in government and politics. This is unfortunate for him, given that most spending cuts will have to pass through Congress, a place where many more ambitious austerity plans have died in the past. So while he could eventually succeed, I think it is unlikely that he will figure out American politics in just a year. On top of that, Trump has so far been quite sensitive to public opinion and keeping the stock market high. Both will likely take a big hit if he introduces giant spending cuts and super high tariffs. On the other hand, his promised tax cuts will be popular and crucially will allow Americans to spend more on imports, which is good for globalization. But in spite of that good news, we have now arrived at prediction number 3, the global economy will struggle. There are 2 reasons why I make this prediction. First, there is the global aging problem that will continue to get worse. Second, there is a massive trend that global productivity is slowing down. Indeed, as you can see here, corrected for inflation, all major advanced economies, including the US, have continuously grown more slowly over time. This may seem obvious given that there are only so many resources on this planet, but actually an economy can grow just fine without new resources if it continues to find new technologies which enable people to do more with fewer resources. But despite great new technologies such as solar panels, the internet, smartphones and AI, global productivity just keeps slowing down. This could be because we have simply picked all the lowest hanging fruit of available technologies already, as the author of this book, Robert Gordon, has suggested. If that's true, it means we need to do more and more research every year for the same level of innovation. For example, inventing the wheel could be done by just one person, but inventing the car needed a lot more researchers. Finally, inventing a jumbo jet needed even more researchers, and so on. This means that to keep technological progress going, we need more educated people to do research. But with so much of the global population already educated and population levels starting to fall in rich countries, and poor countries not catching up so fast anymore, keeping up the pace of innovation will be increasingly difficult over time. Therefore, we have good reason to suspect the low growth trend will continue in 2025. Of course, AI may change this, but if it will, I think this will happen well after 2025, because there are more and more signs of an AI bubble. And as the slow adoption of computer technology has shown, even if AI is not a bubble, it will take quite a few years to adopt new technologies on a massive enough scale to drive economic productivity. Therefore, sadly, low growth leads to my next prediction, which is prediction number 4, governments will face tough choices to rein in debt. After all, government debt in major countries is at an all-time high compared to the size of their economies. With interest rates higher than before, this high debt level is increasingly expensive to service. On top of that, high government debt, higher interest rates, and increased spending all increase the risk of a currency crisis, like the one that we have, for example, seen in the UK in 2022. So how can government debt be brought down? The most attractive option by far is to grow the economy. However, if economic growth is slow, as I predicted that it will be, only 2 unattractive options remain. First is some form of austerity, meaning that the government will either increase taxes or reduce spending. The second option is something that we have almost forgotten about in the industrialized world, and it is known as financial repression. Financial repression is about driving down government borrowing costs by essentially forcing people to invest more in their debt or currency. This can be done in not so subtle ways. For example, until they got their IMF bailout, Egypt prohibited people from investing or spending large sums of money abroad. But financial repression can also be done in much more subtle ways. For example, in the UK, politicians are actively discussing forcing pension funds to bring back money from overseas to invest more in the United Kingdom. So for 2025, I predict that governments will increasingly have to make this difficult choice: austerity or financial repression, where slow-growing high-debt countries such as Egypt, France, Italy, the United Kingdom, Canada, Japan and Brazil are most at risk. This can happen either because their governments experience a debt crisis or because they want to prevent one from materializing. A pretty bleak prediction indeed. So I think it's high time to counter that pessimism with my most optimistic prediction yet, which is prediction number 5. The green energy revolution will continue to amaze. And when I say continue to amaze, I primarily refer to the following 3 really optimistic sub-trends that provided a lot of reason for optimism in 2024 as well. First, solar panel adoption across the globe continued its exponential growth path in 2024, mainly due to huge investments in China. Subtrend number 2, the cost of batteries continued falling in 2024, and we got a lot of really exciting announcements about continued investment in better and better batteries. That will be crucial to sustain the solar revolution and to sustain subtrend number 3, which was that while slower than solar panel adoption, global electric vehicle adoption continued to increase despite a slowdown in Europe, which can largely be explained by the withdrawing of EV subsidies in Germany. On the other hand, like with solar panel adoption, most of the global increase in EV usage is thanks to massively increased adoption in China. So if most solar, battery and electric vehicle adoption was driven by China in 2024, why am I predicting these trends will continue in 2025? Well, 3 reasons. First, I've already predicted that the trade war will start slowly, and if that prediction comes true, tariffs on solar panels, batteries and even electric vehicles won't yet be able to hold back Chinese exports completely. The second reason is technology. Battery technology is rapidly getting better, and with so much money invested last year in their continued improvement, it makes sense that they will get even better in 2025, driving more adoption. Finally, the third reason is simple economics. People buy what is cheapest and most convenient. This means that if a certain threshold is reached at which a new technology is cheaper than its established alternative, global adoption can really take off. In China, we have already reached this point for solar panels, batteries and electric vehicles, partially due to government subsidies, sure, but also due to its thriving industry. Rapid adoption is driving continued investment in these technologies and the infrastructure needed to support them, like charging stations. Once batteries and EVs become cost competitive in the rest of the world, we can be pretty sure that they will take over these markets as they are already doing in China. Cheaper energy and cars, a great thing to look forward to, which round off my 5th prediction for 2025. But can you actually trust my predictions? Well, let me answer that question by making a 6th prediction, which is that most of my predictions will not come true. You see, the global economy is a so-called complex system that consists of billions of interacting people, millions of firms, and at least hundreds of governments. A non-human complex system, like for example the weather, can only be reliably predicted for just a few days ahead. The outcome of a really small human complex system, like a sports game, is also notoriously hard to predict by both experts and scientists. So to think that anyone can reliably predict the global economy for a full year ahead is frankly madness. So then why did I make this video? Well, 2 reasons. First of all, I personally think end of year's predictions like these are really fun. I love reading about them, so hey, I figured you might enjoy watching some informed predictions as well. But more importantly, a lot of you told me that you watch this channel to stay up to date about the global economy and to learn more about economics. Through these 5 predictions, I've told you the major trends that I am watching right now and hopefully gave you some interesting perspectives about the economics driving these trends. But if you want a properly informed perspective about the global economy in 2025, I recommend checking out as many similar predictions by other economists as possible. The best place to start with that right now is by checking out The World Ahead 2025 by The Economist, the sponsor of this video. Highlights in the World Ahead 2025 for me included 10 trends to watch, a calendar with all the most important upcoming global events, and detailed predictions for every major economic region in the world. Such comprehensive coverage of the global economy is exactly why I'm excited to share that Money Macro viewers can now get 20% off an annual subscription to The Economist, which gives you full access to their daily in-depth global reporting for an entire year. The Economist stands for Independent Journalism for Independent Thinkers, which is why they have been part of my media diet long before I started this channel. Whether you prefer the print edition or their app's digital weekly edition, you'll always stay ahead of the news no matter where you are. So don't miss out. Click the link in the description or top comment, or head over to economist.com/moneymacro to claim your exclusive 20% discount today.